When we think about manipulation, many people imagine it as something obvious, someone trying to pressure you, persuade you, or even force you into doing something you don't want to do. But the truth is, real manipulation, especially when it's done by someone highly skilled, almost never feels that way. A master manipulator doesn't show their hand so clearly. Instead, they operate quietly, often making you believe you are the one in control, while in reality, they are directing the outcome. That is what makes them so effective and so difficult to detect. Dan Jones, who has studied communication, influence, and psychology for many years, often explains that manipulators use subtle strategies to bypass your conscious defenses. They don't argue with you directly. They work with your emotions, your beliefs, and your natural human tendencies. To recognize a master manipulator, we need to understand how these strategies actually work in real life, not just in theory. One of the first things to realize is that manipulation is rarely about intelligence alone. It's about awareness of human psychology. For example, most people have a natural tendency to want to be liked, to fit in, and to avoid conflict. A manipulator understands this and uses it. Imagine a situation where someone gives you a compliment, not because they genuinely feel it, but because they know it will lower your guard. You start to like them, trust them, and slowly they build a foundation from which they can influence you. On the surface, it feels harmless, but over time it shapes the way you respond to them. Another common tool master manipulators use is framing. Framing means controlling the way information is presented so that you interpret it in a certain way. For example, let's say you are asked to stay late at work. A manipulator wouldn't simply say, "You have to stay late." Instead, they might say, "I know you're the kind of person who takes pride in doing things properly, and I can always rely on you when things get tough." Notice how this frames the request. It appeals to your self-image, to your desire to be reliable and respected. You feel that saying no would mean going against your own values, even though the choice should be yours. By controlling the frame, the manipulator directs your behavior without appearing forceful. Another way manipulators gain control is by creating confusion or uncertainty. When people are uncertain, they naturally look to others for guidance. Skilled manipulators will give just enough mixed signals to make you unsure of yourself. Think about a boss who criticizes your work harshly one day, but praises you the next. The inconsistency keeps you slightly off balance, and you become more dependent on their approval. Over time, you start working harder to win that praise, without even realizing how much control they now hold over your motivation. A key insight Dan Jones emphasizes is that manipulators often use your own emotions against you. Emotions are powerful motivators. When you feel guilty, afraid, or even overly grateful, you're more likely to act without thinking logically. For instance, guilt is one of the easiest emotions to exploit. A manipulator might say something like, "After everything I've done for you, I can't believe you won't help me with this." Notice how this turns a simple request into a moral obligation. You feel that if you say no, you are being unfair or ungrateful. This is a trap because instead of making a decision based on reason, you're making it based on the desire to reduce guilt. Another subtle tactic is mirroring and pacing. This means copying your body language, speech patterns, or emotional state in order to build rapport. If you're excited, they become excited. If you're serious, they become serious. This creates a feeling of connection and trust. You might think, "This person really gets me." But once the manipulator has established that bond, they can begin to lead you in directions you didn't expect. By gradually shifting the tone, they can move you from comfort into agreement with their ideas. It's also important to recognize that manipulation is not always about getting something obvious like money or power. Sometimes it's about control in more subtle ways, like influencing your beliefs, shaping your identity, or keeping you emotionally dependent. Think about a relationship where one partner constantly plants seeds of doubt, saying things like, "I don't think your friends really care about you as much as I do." Over time, this kind of suggestion isolates you and makes you more reliant on the manipulator. It doesn't feel like control at first, but the gradual erosion of your independence is one of the clearest signs of manipulation. Master manipulators also understand timing. They don't push when you're strong and alert. They wait until you're tired, distracted, or emotionally vulnerable. For example, if someone wants you to agree to something difficult, they might bring it up at the end of a long day when your decision-making is weaker. Or they might wait until after giving you some good news, so you're in a more compliant, positive state of mind. This use of timing shows how deeply they understand human behavior. One of the most dangerous things about manipulators is that they often appear charming and trustworthy. They can be charismatic, funny, and even generous at first. This is why many people don't realize they're being manipulated until much later. The charm acts as a mask. It makes you want to believe the best about them. That's why recognizing manipulation isn't about judging someone's personality on the surface. It's about paying attention to patterns of behavior over time. Do you feel consistently confused, guilty, or pressured when dealing with this person? Do you feel your independence shrinking, even though nothing obvious has happened? These are red flags. To see this more clearly, imagine a friend who always manages to get their way. At first, you think they're just persuasive, but then you realize every time you try to say no, they respond with disappointment, guilt trips, or subtle anger. Over time, you find yourself saying yes just to avoid the emotional cost of saying no. This is not persuasion anymore. It's manipulation. Persuasion respects your freedom to choose. Manipulation removes it. Dan Jones often points out that to resist manipulation, awareness is the most powerful tool. Once you start noticing the strategies, framing, guilt-tripping, mirroring, creating confusion, you begin to see through them. The spell breaks. For example, if someone tries to make you feel guilty, pause and ask yourself, "Am I really responsible here, or are they just using my emotions to control me?" This small moment of reflection can stop the manipulative cycle in its tracks. Of course, not every influence attempt is manipulation. Friends and family may encourage, persuade, or even pressure you sometimes, but the difference lies in intention and respect. Manipulation happens when someone is trying to benefit at your expense, without your awareness or consent. Healthy influence is transparent. Manipulation hides its true purpose. One final thing to understand is that manipulators often choose their targets carefully. They look for people who are empathetic, who want to please others, or who avoid conflict. These qualities are not weaknesses. They are human strengths. But in the wrong hands, they can be exploited. Recognizing this doesn't mean you should stop being kind or empathetic. It means you should balance those qualities with awareness and boundaries. So, if you want to recognize a master manipulator, pay less attention to what they say in one moment and more attention to how you feel across many interactions. Do you feel free, respected, and understood? Or do you feel trapped, guilty, and controlled? Your emotions are the first signals. By trusting those signals, questioning the frames being set around you, and noticing when someone consistently undermines your independence, you build a shield against even the most skilled manipulator. And that's the key lesson. Master manipulators may be skilled at using psychology, but once you understand their methods, their power weakens. Awareness brings back choice. Choice restores freedom. And freedom is what keeps your mind and your life truly your own.